Because you just look like a dad.
Both.
Okay.
He's like a hot dad.
Okay.
You know what I realized?
What?
J.J. Abrams shouldn't have directed. Wait.
I'm just going to look at the pictures.
Hi, welcome to Blu-ray on a Budget. This is our first theatrical episode.
Yes.
We went to the movies.
We did.
I did not know that movies existed. No, I'm kidding. I knew that they existed. But we actually saw a movie in theaters.
We did.
Heather, what did we see?
We saw Spectre on Thursday night, the night before it technically opened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about it?
Well, this is the fourth film in the Daniel Craig era. As we prepped for it, because always on a budget, we got The Quantum of Solace. As you can see, there's $4.99. $4.99.
And Casino Royale.
Wait a second.
Which was also $4.99.
$4.99 and Skyfall.
Which was probably more than $4.99, but was still on a budget.
No, you could get this one for $4.99.
Really?
Yeah, you don't. Honestly, look at this. No DVD, no digital code, just Skyfall on a Blu-ray, on a budget. But that's what you get for $4.99. It's a pretty good deal. You can get all these films. But I've been kind of dodging your question. What did I think of Spectre?
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about Spectre.
As do I.
That's the honest truth. There were people sleeping in the theater. I understand.
Snoring.
Very loudly.
In the theater, loudly.
Very loudly. Yeah. Throughout the whole movie. And I've gone to see movies at 2 in the morning. I've gone to see movies at 1 in the morning. People weren't sleeping because of the excitement of the film. Now, this film is exciting. Let's start with the opening. They open in Mexico City, and it is amazing. It's probably one of the best openings. It's also a one-shot. It's all done. If you guys are familiar with cinema, you're familiar with, the stuff that De Palma does or the stuff that Scorsese does. It's a one-take shot, and it's very impressive. Unfortunately, after that, the movie kind of peters off.
Yeah, like, the first scene is the high point of the movie, which is kind of disappointing. It's like, it's one of those movies where for the first, like, half hour or so, even after the opening scene, like, you're thinking to yourself, this is one of the best movies that I've seen this year.
Yeah.
And then it just goes downhill. And it was really sad because I love the opening and it was building and then it never delivered. Like, it became disorganized.
Yeah.
It's a very disorganized movie, which is disappointing because it's Spectre, it's the next James Bond, and we look forward to it.
Well, here are my 3 chief complaints, which I'm sure you have your own complaints, but I want to get the negative out of the way so we can at least inject some positivity into this review. Okay, so here are some problems. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes.
It's very obvious that there were too many people, whether it was Daniel Craig, whether it was the screenwriters, whether it was Sam Mendes, the director. This script seemed disjointed. It seemed like...
I can't even...
Yeah. Okay. Second detriment to this movie. The millions of throwbacks, and literally, I counted 30, and there's probably more than 30, throwbacks to old James Bond movies. When it came to lazy writing in this film, we're going to get into spoilers in a minute, but when it came to lazy writing, the way that they would fall back on the lazy writing is, oh, well, that's just a James Bond thing. And that's lazy, because you would have this complex setup, and then it was like, that's it, well, it's James Bond. My third biggest complaint about Spectre, pacing. This film is paced terribly. It has a 2.5-hour runtime that easily could have been 2 hours and not 2.5 hours.
I agree. I don't even... But that's not why they were snoring people. They were snoring people because it hit low points, and like you just said, they were resorting back to old Bond-isms, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And it was cheap. They could have done so much more. I mean, like you said, the high point was probably Batista.
Yeah, I really hate to say it, but as you can see, he's on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. Yeah. He plays Mr. Hinks. And the most exciting parts of the movie, other than the Mexico City opening, are the fights with Mr. Hinks. They have an amazing fight scene on the train, and it's incredible.
Lea Seydoux was, I thought, she was just gorgeous, but she also brought something to it for me. I don't know if you feel that way.
I feel that way.
She had charm. She was not... she was original to the movie. She was a different Bond girl. I mean, of course, she sleeps with him, whatever, and that's very Bond girl.
But it's time to get spoilers. So right now, we're going to hit spoiler territory.
Okay.
Because this is where it goes. So if you don't want any spoilers, skip ahead or go see the movie and make your own mind up. Now, the Lea Seydoux sleeping with Bond thing. She puts up a good fight, and she's like, basically, she goes with the Spring Breakers, you're not going to get this pussy, and then
10 or 15 minutes later, he gets that pussy. It was just a little bit disappointing. I mean, I don't want to turn this into, some kind of feminist rant, because she's a Bond girl. So that's just how it is, but it was so quick. It was just, again, that's how I can feel where there were too many cooks in the kitchen, because it was going in one direction, and then it went another direction. It was disorganized again.
Yeah, this movie has got too much. Now, here is the crux of the film, because I'm going to be giving away secrets, and I told you you're in spoiler territory. Mm-hmm. Christoph Waltz he's a fine actor. He's an amazing actor. He was born to play a Bond villain. It is no secret, it is no secret that they got the rights back. MGM got the rights back. The Broccoli family got the rights back to Spectre. Now, we haven't seen Spectre since the early James Bond movies. I've seen all the James Bond movies. She hasn't. I'm familiar with over 50, 60 years of Bond history. My grandfather gave me the books. I know all about this. Now, basically, you could have called this movie Blofeld Begins, because it was just as much an origin story of Blofeld. It's just what you think. If you were a Bond fan, and you saw the trailer 6-7 months ago, you already knew Waltz was Blofeld. It doesn't. But now they show you how he gets the scar in this movie. They show you everything. There is a throwback scene that's towards the end of the movie that is basically not shot for shot, but pretty much shot for shot of Dr. No in the interrogation scene, the torture scene. The reality of it is that Christoph Waltz is worthy of so much more. Again, he was born to play a Bond villain, but it was kind of like they didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether... See, they keep him in the shadows so much that by the time they reveal him, you're like, what?
They reveal him too late. The other problem is that he's not as scary as Javier Bardem's villain in Skyfall. He's not nearly as terrifying, he's not as violent, he's not as cunning, he's not as sexy. I mean, but I guess Christoph Waltz isn't very sexy in the first place. He's supposed to think that he's sexy. I think that that's a Bond villain thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
they know that they're all that.
He gets the best line of the movie. Blofeld's best line, Christoph Waltz, is, James Bond, I am the author of all of your pain.
But he doesn't act like it.
He doesn't act like it, but again, this is where I find problems with most franchises now. We get into Bond world building. Oh boy.
It's like a Marvel movie with the world building.
This is where I'm fine. I'm fine with the way they tie Casino Royale, Skyfall, and Quantum of Solace together is that Blofeld is the head of Spectre, and he's basically been pulling the strings the whole time. I'm fine with that. Fine with that. What I'm not fine with is that this becomes a world-building movie, where it's like, well, this is this, and this is this, and the third act is completely botched. The first two acts are wonky as is.
No, the first act is great in my opinion.
The first act is good.
Yeah.
The second act is botched because of pacing issues. But the third act has two false endings. And, again, big spoiler territory, he has the opportunity to kill Blofeld at the end. And I kind of... There's a bunch of reasons why and why he does not kill Blofeld. But I'll tell you why that he didn't kill Blofeld. About a year and a half ago, I had read online, and I had read multiple sources, Spectre is set up to be a trilogy. Now, I don't know whether they couldn't decide whether it was going to be, but the only reason they didn't kill Blofeld, and I don't even believe Batista plays Mr. Hinks, I don't believe he's dead either. I think he's like Odd Job or Jink.
You don't see him die. I mean, he...
Yeah, you don't get a clear and present like death. Like you're like, okay, well he's dead, because again, it's Bond world building.
Yes.
Now, why don't you tell the audience how this movie ends? Because here's a big spoiler.
He has the opportunity to blow Blofeld's brains out, right? Okay. And he doesn't. He rides off into the sunset in a beautiful car with Lea Seydoux.
The original Aston Martin.
And,
That's it.
that's really unimpressive, and that's how it ended.
Now, we're to believe that now he's happily in love and that he got the girl.
Yeah.
We knew he's James Bond. Now, the thing is typically in a James Bond movie, and I told you, and the thing is if you know your Bond history, there was a movie where James Bond got married. In the next movie, the first 10 minutes, they kill her. Now, I'm going to tell you, Lea Seydoux might get killed in the next movie, if there is a next movie. Daniel Craig has gone public, and he has said that he'd rather slit his wrists with glass. This guy's
He said he would only do it for the money, which I don't know.
You're making 70... Dude, seriously, if you got a problem with it, I'll get a personal trainer. I'll go. I can do a British accent. I'll go do it.
You can.
If you got a problem with it, I mean, there's tons of people out there fucking starving, and you don't want to do Bond again. You honestly sound like a punk bitch. I'm sorry. So, here we go.
Fired.
Was Spectre good?
Was Spectre good? Yes and no. On a scale of 10, I would give it like a 5.5, 6. Because the beginning is so great. I would watch this movie again just for the beginning and probably fall asleep later on.
I'm going with the 5.5, 6 review as well.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not great. And the problem is...
It's a popcorn movie.
It is a popcorn movie. But here, you know what's so frustrating about Spectre? Is that it could be a great movie, but it's just a good movie.
Does not have the sophistication of Skyfall whatsoever. Skyfall was a very dark, deep movie. It had so much malaise around the plot, James Bond. Whereas in this one, he smiles a lot. There's this weird sense of humor tied in. Like, it becomes funny.
It works. In some spots, it works. It does work. Like this thing with the mouse.
Awkward.
The mouse gag worked.
Okay, the mouse gag, but like, he was just too smiley, and I feel as though Daniel Craig's James Bond from Casino Royale up to now, or not until now, was a very dark James Bond. Even the covers, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very serious. It's not...
I think the thing was that by the time you've now hit the 4th movie in his cycle, so
they're trying to change it up, but... Again, disorganization is...
Is this the first part of a trilogy? Well, if he slits his wrists and he's signed to do 5 movies, right?
I heard that a long time ago, that he was signed on to do 5.
So he's got one more, so I don't know how they're going to do a trilogy. Or a 2-parter. Well, I know how they're going to do a 2-parter. Blofeld's going to come back. This movie is not Sam Mendes' fault. This movie is in the hands of the writers, the editors, and, I hate to say it, probably a diva star. So let's do the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. We're excluding George Lazenby. We're excluding Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, and all the others. This is strictly Daniel Craig. I'm going to do it now. We agreed Skyfall is the best of the bunch.
And then Casino Royale is my second favorite, and I think it's the same for you.
Yep.
Quantum of Solace is a very blasé movie. I don't know if blasé is the right word for it. It's a lot of not positive things in my opinion.
I hate to say it. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go Skyfall at number 1, Casino Royale at number 2, at number 3, Spectre, and number 4, Quantum of Solace.
Spectre isn't bad. You have to know that. Do not see it. Form your own opinion. But...
Yeah, because there are people who did love this movie. It's very split. And the other thing, too, is if you're a James Bond fan, like not just like, oh, I enjoy James, like you real James Bond fan, you've seen all the films, read the books, this movie is a blowjob to you. It's a love letter to Bond films. It really is. And that in itself is nice. It's nice that they paid so much attention, but the problem was, cut a half hour of the movie, make the script tighter, and if this guy's going to be a diva, I mean... I don't know. Hey, look, this is what we thought of James Bond. What did you think of Spectre? Are we on the money? Are we off? Do you want to like and subscribe? God forbid. Look, you tell us. If Daniel Craig is on the way out, who should be the next James Bond? Comment below. Tell us what you think. Were we right? Were we wrong? Who should be the next James Bond? This is Blu-ray on a Budget. I'm Jerry Hara.
And I'm Heather.
And we went to the movies.
Blu-ray on a Budget.